I hope you all enjoyed your breakfast. I can tell you all enjoyed the conversation at your tables, and I'm really happy to hear that. It's my pleasure now to introduce Dr. Kirk Schultz, the 11th president of Washington State University. Kirk has been our president since 2016, a year after I joined WSU, and has really prioritized increasing the reach and effectiveness of WSU statewide. One of the really unique things about WSU is our presence across the state. And I think the more we can do to leverage that presence across the state by being here at events like this and everything else that we do is really good. As chief executive of Washington State University, President Schultz sets the strategic vision and the direction for the entire WSU system, advocating for higher education policy, engaging in philanthropic priorities, and representing the university at the state and federal levels. So I'm very happy to welcome Kirk Schultz to the stage. Thank you, Kirk. There you go.
Well, good morning. There we go. The mic shuts off for me a lot. But anyway, good morning. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for participating in this event. You know, with the Apple Cup coming up, we decided a few months ago to really make this a Seattle week. And I know many of you have been around us a long time will remember when we used to do these types of things. And we thought, let's reinvent this a little bit. What makes the most sense for WSU? And so this week we have over 20 events that are alumni events. There's some come one, come all events. There are specific events to our colleges. We had some of our key business partners were with us for a reception Tuesday night. That was the Taste of Washington, and Taste of the State, sorry, Taste of Washington is what we do in DC, but Taste of the State, and we highlighted the many agricultural products that come from the state of Washington, and we did that reception with the Department of Commerce and our colleagues at the Department of Agriculture. So we want to keep and make sure that we're out and about quite a bit. And that's why this power breakfast this morning is really critical for us. I've been around several CEO roundtables that have been this week. And when we've talked about what people want to see in those cougs coming out as they go into the workforce, and we keep getting things around what in engineering we used to call the soft skills, you know, how people conduct themselves so they get to work on time. Nobody said we need somebody who's better at cost accounting, or we need somebody who's better at thermodynamics. Yeah, sorry. Okay, there is somebody in the audience who's like, well, that's not right. So I think one of the things that is important about that is that we just need to make sure that our faculty, that our leaders, administrators, presidents are in front of our business community, and that's writ large more, so that as we're producing that next generation of chemical engineers or next generation of marketing professionals, that we're making sure that what we're doing in the classroom and at WSU is making people work ready right when they show up at your particular organization. So I encourage you around your tables, and as we go today, as we hear from Rachel, really look forward to those particular things. Finally, I'll take a few questions here in just a minute. There's nothing exciting that's happened in the last 24 hours. So if I look a little tired this morning, yeah, thank you. For those of you who may not be aware, we announced this morning at 6 that we've added 4 new schools to the Pac-12 Conference: Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Colorado State universities. And yes, thank you. And we've been working really hard over the course of the summer on mapping out, the future of the Pac-12 Conference. And as we talk to alumni, friends, supporters, industry partners, student athletes, coaches, people kept coming back to the same thing. The Pac-12 brand is important to Washington State University. We want a really quality athletic conference on the West Coast that's focused on competing at an elite level. We've got that history and tradition. And clearly, adding additional schools, it's not going to be the same Pac-12 that it was a few years ago, but that's okay. Let's build something that fits our core values and fits what's important to us and our student athletes. So I appreciate the great work Teresa, our commissioner, has done. She's been there about a year in her role as commissioner, a little less than a year, and she has been aggressive and strategic in her whole time. And then I just want to call out our colleagues at Oregon State University. They've been great to work with as we've gone through this, thinking through different scenarios, plotting out what we wanted to do. And then any of you have been involved in some sort of a business deal, right? The last 3 days, most of my time has been, on the phone and talking to attorneys, which is great, let me tell you. So, but we're thrilled to be where we are, and now we're just going to be looking forward. We have to get to 8 schools. At the end of the day, you got to get to 8. So most of the media speculation this morning was everybody's opinion on what those next 2 schools need to be. And what we want to do really right now is celebrate going into the Apple Cup, the additional schools that are there, and clearly we'll be working strategically on what makes sense for us moving forward. And this, let me give you a sense of the discussion that we're going to wind up having. And I say we, whether it's with our coaches, our student athletes, with different people, is do you want a West Coast footprint and where we keep our student athlete travel and some of those kind of things down? Or do you say we want to build a more national conference that might have some conference members out of the, sort of 2 time zones west of the Rocky Mountains? And some people are going to say, well, it's clear, Kirk, you got to do X. Some people say it's clear you got to do Y. But we have an opportunity here to be strategic and think carefully about what's important to us, what's important to our student athletes, and how can we make sure we're elevating Cougar athletics to the level that we're accustomed to. So with that, pleased to be here this morning, and I'll take a couple questions if anybody has them. Oh, man, that is awesome. There are some advantages to having done this for a while. So, yes, sir. Will it still remain the Pac-12? Presidents, we just don't worry about what that number is at the end. And so, you got the Big Ten with 18 and whatever. So, yeah, I think in all seriousness, instead of moving that Pac-X number, we'll leave it as the Pac-12 for now. We'll stabilize that membership. And then maybe you decide to have a new branding campaign and something that you might do a little bit differently. But right now, we believe the value of keeping the 12 number there makes sense, just like the Big Ten's not going to the Big 18 or whatever. So I think we're going to stick with that. Great question. And that's what you need is an engineer doing marketing. Let me tell you, that's a success story. So folks, once again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for participating in what has really been a great week for WSU. We want to continue to make sure we're doing everything we can to produce fantastic graduates that are ready to help our business community to be successful in the marketplace. That's at the end of the day what we got to do. We need your help to continue to get there. Thanks. Go Cougs.
All right. So I want to start off, before I introduce our speaker for today, I want to start and share a few highlights from what's been going on in the Carson College of Business. I get asked that question a lot. So the first thing I want to share is that this spring, we completed our 5-year accreditation review from the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business. That is the accrediting agency for schools of business across the world. And we came through our review, I would say, with flying colors. And in particular, one of the things that came out of that was a commendation for something that we are very proud of in the college, and that is our Carson Center for Student Success. The Carson Center for Student Success is where we house our student advising programs. It is also where we house our professional development activities for our students, and those professional development activities speak so strongly to the things that we all hear every day from the business community about what students need to have and to be in order to be job ready. And so I was really pleased to see that called out. That was a great celebration for us in a college and a great recognition of the work of our Carson Center for Student Success. I'm also pleased to share in the spring, we announced the Phyllis J. Campbell Endowed Deanship. Yes, thank you, Mike. Phyllis and Bill Campbell are tremendous supporters of the university and of the Carson College of Business, and through their visionary gift, they have provided the deanship. And the importance of the deanship is it provides a sustainable basis of support for us to pursue innovation and excellence. It gives me, as the dean, the opportunity to say, here's new things we need to be working on, and we have the seed funding to start those things up and be able to get those going. And so we are tremendously grateful to Phyllis and Bill for that gift that really sets the college up for the next level and the next years of our activity. This year is the 10th anniversary of our naming as the Carson College of Business, which came from a generous investment from Scott Carson, I'm sorry. Wow. Scott Carson. And so this is just such a tremendous thing where we see ourselves continuing to improve over time. In the Carson College of Business, we graduate more business students than any other university in the state. Think about that. In that sense, we are the engine of business in the state. We are providing a talent pipeline to the state, and that's really important to us and our mission. We provide educational opportunities through our face-to-face programs, through our online programs. We are just beginning to start to develop a suite of non-credit professional development programs to be able to serve the immediate needs of working professionals across the state and potentially across the world. I mentioned earlier our student success efforts, our Amplifier program, which is a required co-curricular program for every student in our undergraduate program. Not only do they have to take all their classes so that they can learn their cost accounting, you're welcome, Accounting Advisory Board. They also have to engage in professional development activities to help them prepare for those professional skills that they also need. And all of these activities, everything that we do to be the engine of the state, requires us to remain connected to the business community and the policy communities in the region so that we understand what it is that we're the engine for. And to that end, one of the things I want to announce is that we are making a deliberate effort to accelerate our engagement in the greater Puget Sound region. And so we have launched an initiative over the last year called the Carson GPS, or Greater Puget Sound Initiative. And through that, we're aiming to increase our visibility and to demonstrate our commitment to be part of this community in the region. So you will see us forming more corporate partnerships. You will see us out with thought leadership a little bit more in the region. You will see us out at events, and you will continue to see us hosting events like Power Breakfast, which is one of the key ways that we do that. And so I'm really proud of everything that we're doing in the Carson College of Business. I am proud of the incredible team that makes up the Carson College of Business, and we have several members of that team here today. And so I remain very grateful for the wonderful job that I have. So that's what's new in the Carson College of Business. And with that, I would like to introduce our guest speaker. So please join me in welcoming Rachel Ruggeri to the stage. And now I get to embarrass her a little bit. So Rachel is the Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer at Starbucks. In that role, she is responsible for the global finance function, which includes U.S. and global retail, channel development, supply chain, and corporate functions. She also manages teams working in accounting, corporate financial planning and analysis, tax, treasury, corporate development, internal audit, and investor relations. And of course, of note, over the last 3 weeks, she has served as the interim CEO for Starbucks. Rachel hails from Eastern Washington and is incredibly proud to call Walla Walla her home. She began her career in 1992 and has worked at multiple organizations, and you'll hear a little bit more about that as we get into our fireside chat. Rachel has had a tremendously noteworthy career at Starbucks. She joined the company's accounting team in 2001 and helped launch the Stored Value Card. She's held a series of leadership roles with progressive responsibility, including VP Corporate Finance and Planning, VP Finance in support of the U.S. business portfolio, Senior Vice President of Global Retail, and now finally Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. Rachel holds a BA from the University of the Puget Sound and an MBA from Washington State University, which I am proud to say she earned on our Tri-Cities campus. So, with that, I'm going to move over and grab a seat, and we're gonna have a little chat. All right. So, Rachel, I mentioned that you've worked at multiple organizations throughout your career in a variety of sectors. Can you tell us a little bit more about the path that brought you to where you are today?
Sure. Before I do that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. One of my biggest fears is that people get bored and fall asleep. And so to prevent that, we have a few prizes throughout our conversation, and it's real simple. All you have to do is when I ask a question, if you know the answer, raise your hand, we'll call on you. If you get it right, you get the prize. If you don't get it right, I move on to the next person. And the message here is taking a risk is worth the reward. I guarantee it. So hopefully we'll have a little fun with that. So back to my career. If you could move to the next slide. Okay. I think it's really hard for me to talk about my career without talking about who I am as a person. And what you can see in the top section here is you see basically this is my family. I've got my nieces, my nephews, my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, my husband, who happens to be a coug. You see some dogs. I've got, that's Renzo and Ruby in there. I've got some bunnies, and then that's my favorite place to run and walk in Walla Walla. And the reason I share this with you is, for me, it's very grounding to be from a tight-knit family. I just got back from a trip with 23 of my cousins, aunts, uncles, family. It was very hard navigating Europe with 23 people, but we did it. But being part of a close-knit family is really important to me because it's grounding. And I grew up in Walla Walla, Washington, which I'm really proud of. When you grow up in a small town, there's just this sense of belonging. People know you. They know who your family is. I mean, I still go back after all these years and I'll say, do you know so-and-so? And I realize the world's moved on, but I'm still stuck in, the 80s in Walla Walla. But as a teenager, I didn't like that, right? It wasn't great having everybody know you and what you were doing. But as an adult, I've really come to appreciate that because it's a sense of belonging. And I think that's important because I've used that sense of belonging to navigate my career. When you look down on the bottom there, it looks linear, but my career has not at all been linear. I don't have a 1 + 2 = 3 kind of career. I've been a lot of zigging and zagging, and that's led me to where I am today. You can see I got a degree in English literature at the University of Puget Sound. I loved writing, I loved reading, and my first job was to teach English as a second language at the community college. And then I went back and I got a post-bac degree in accounting at Walla Walla University, and my dad was pleased because I got a job right away, and it paid me more. So I worked as an accountant at a municipality, and from there I wanted to do something further, and so I went and got a master's, and that led me to roles in private sector, and then of course in the public sector. And so I've worked most of my career at Starbucks, but I've actually left Starbucks a couple of times and come back. And I think what that speaks to about me is I've always been navigating, where it is that I feel like I fit best. And, I've been fortunate to find that, Starbucks is a good fit for me. It allows me to be who I am. And that's important to me. But, along my journey, it's really been about saying yes to every opportunity that's come along. I've taken risks. I mean, leaving, every time I left Starbucks, people are like, you're crazy. What are you doing? And it just was important for me. I take those risks because it's led to bigger and better rewards for me. I didn't know that. I didn't know what was going to happen, but for me, that was really important. And I never focused on titles. Like, I never thought one day I'm going to be, the CFO of Starbucks. I never thought about that. I'm so honored and privileged to be here. What I focused on was I having fun? Did I like what I was doing? Did I belong? Could I wear a dress like this and not be like shunned because the whole room's wearing black and navy? It mattered to me, and I found a place where I fit. And so all that was really important, and I focused on the skills that I would learn and the contributions I could make, and that's what's led me to here today.
Very cool. You said you say yes to every opportunity. You probably don't say yes to absolutely every opportunity.
I've said yes to everything professionally.
Have you?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that would make you say no?
I think if it was something with my family, like, so for example, if they wanted me to move somewhere and I'd have to move away from my family, that might be the deal breaker. Although I did get a potential opportunity with Starbucks in Japan, and my husband is not a change guy. He does the same thing. He does not like risks. He does not like change. And this job in Japan came up, and I thought, and I asked him about it, and he said yes. And I was like, what? And then I realized they have the best powder skiing, and that made a lot of sense. And it didn't end up coming to fruition. But generally, leaving my family would be the no.
Yeah, very cool. So I mentioned earlier that you attended Washington State University for your MBA.
Yeah.
Why did you pick WSU?
Well, it was interesting because I was interviewing with a couple of different programs, and what I liked about WSU is I met with the dean, and it wasn't about me as a number or a GMAT score. It was about me as a person. We had a really great conversation, and I felt like I belonged there. And I was in a small class. We were really a tight-knit group, and it was really individual attention, which, I grew up in a small Catholic school growing up. I mean, I think we had 20 kids in my class, and so I was used to that individual attention, and it was great. It was a great program for that reason. And when I fast forward to today, I think about one of the reasons I love being a Coug is I said I live with a Coug, and he's a really quiet, reserved individual, but when you see the Jumbotron this weekend at the Apple Cup, the person with the painted face and no shirt on, that's my husband. I don't know what it is about the energy of the Cougs, but I love that energy. If I were to look at you and say, go Cougs, what would you say back to me?
Go Cougs.
Yeah. I mean, I was at a museum in Massachusetts a couple years ago, and I was walking out, and this gentleman had a WSU shirt on, and I go, go Cougs. And he walks up, he turns around, and he goes, go Cougs. And I was like, I love that energy. Like, it really resonates with me. And so, that was, for me, a good decision. And I think I have a lot of pride for WSU as a result of that. I have a lot of pride for Starbucks. I have a lot of pride about being a hometown type of person. So this is where our first quiz question comes in. So if you go to the next slide. Okay. So in the vein of hometown pride, how many Starbucks are in Pullman? I see a hand there. 2. No. Keep going. I see a hand right there.
Owned or licensed?
Oh, both. Good question.
5.
No. Kurt?
3.
No.
Awesome.
Come on, Cougs. All right, I see a hand. Back there.
4.
Yes, 4. We got 4. And you're right, we have a combination of company-owned and licensed. So 4 stores. You get a good box with a lot of prizes. Vivian here today filled that box with a lot of fun things. So I think it was over there. Okay, so.
All right.
See, you took the risk. Even if you got it wrong, now you get a good reward. So there's a good message in that.
There is a good message in that. So you joined Starbucks in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
What has changed in Starbucks since 2001, and what has stayed the same?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. Next slide, please. I'll let you see the visuals. The numbers tell a lot. So I started at Starbucks in 2001. And, at the time we had about 50,000 partners. That's what we call employees. And we had around 4,000 stores. We were just a little under $3 billion, and we had about $300 million in operating income and profit. No loyalty program or no rewards program. And you fast forward to today, and we have over 450,000 partners that wear the green apron across the globe. We have a little over 39,000 stores. That just blows my mind sometimes. Last year we ended with about $36 billion in revenue, and we have just a little bit about under $6 billion in operating income and profit. And from a loyalty program, we have a loyalty program that's the envy of the industry. We have about close to 75 million loyalty members across the globe. So much has changed, but I think what's important for me is the reasons I joined Starbucks have stayed the same. I joined Starbucks because I was the kind of kid that grew up where I was always taught about mission and values and doing good and giving back. It was really important to my family and just to the way I was raised. And I love this concept of you could work for a company that was about profit, but it had an impact in the world. And the time, it was really novel in 2001 to join a company like that. And you fast forward today, and the mission and the values are still the same. Our mission statement is basically, with every cup, with every conversation, with every community, we nurture the limitless possibility of human connection. I know, sometimes I'm like, what does that mean? What it means is really an individual experience. And I talked about the reason I chose WSU is because I had individual attention. And when we do it right at Starbucks, your interaction as a partner, as a customer, is individual. We don't always get it right, but when we do it right, when you get that individual experience, you have that barista that knows you, has your drink right, that's the magic of Starbucks, and that's what differentiates us. And that's mattered to me, and that's really underpinned by our values as a company. Our values are about craft, they're about courage, they're about results, which I personally like to hear. They're about belonging, that sense of being who you are. It's a company that welcomes all different types of personalities, skill sets, capabilities. And it's about joy, which I think is fun. And so that to me has always resonated with me. I read a study recently that 51% of employees today are looking for a new opportunity because they feel that they don't fit with the mission and the values of their company. And I feel really grateful that, I was able to find a place early on where I felt like I belonged and I felt like I could, be my full self. And I think that's important. There's a quiz question in that. So I just talked about my history with Starbucks. My history as part of the Cougs. And so next slide, please. Can someone tell me, oh, that's a good slide. There you go. Is what year did the first Starbucks open in Pullman? I gave you a few hints. Back there. 1995. No. It kind of correlates with me. Nope, not quite. Right there. 2001, yes.
Yes.
So 2001, August 26th of 2001. And why that's ironic is I started at Starbucks on August 27th of 2001. So I just keep finding all these, 6 degrees of separation in a way between Starbucks, between WSU. And so there you go. Again, you took a risk, you got a good reward. Even if you didn't win, right, you still took the risk, which I think is important.
Excellent. So you hold a pretty high-profile role
Yes.
in a pretty high-profile organization. Can you tell us about a day in the life of Rachel Ruggeri?
I can. I tell you that it starts early. I'm an early morning person. I wake up at about 4 every day, and we get a sales report at 4:30. And so I check the sales report, and then I usually go in right away after I get dressed because I find that the morning's good thinking time. And a lot of people aren't around in the office, and so it's a good time to think. But on my way in, I always stop at a store, and I get a grande quad espresso over ice with extra, extra ice. So that's how I start my morning. And I usually talk to the partners. If there's new promotions, I always like to see what it looks like. I check out the store. And then as I'm driving in, that's when I talk to my family. I always talk to my mom, call my sister. Once in a while, my brother gets in on the loop. Not as often, but he gets in on the loop. And I actually call my best friend a lot, who happens to be a librarian at WSU. So there you go. And then when I get into the when I get into the office, usually for me, what I love about finance is there's a schedule, right? There's a schedule that we follow. It's kind of, in some ways, routinized, right? We have forecasts, we have financial plans, we have monthly close, we have quarterly close, we have earnings, and we live by that schedule. But I think why I love Starbucks so much is, even with that, every single day brings something unexpected. There could be something that happens in the news, like what you woke up to this morning about WSU, what we all woke up to. If there's something in the news, we may have to respond to it. Sometimes it's not good. Sometimes it requires all hands on deck. It could be that an investor has questions that come out of the blue. It could be that I have a new CEO, which I've had 4 of them in 4 years. So I find that, there's always something happening that keeps it exciting. And so, that's a lot of the day-to-day. On a weekly basis, I always try to look and see, like, we do a promotion of our partners in finance. And so I like to send a note on people's promotions. I like to look on Workplace, which is like a Facebook at work, to see what's going on. And I might like some things or respond. Some of our store partners do the most amazing videos, crazy stuff. And I love looking at them and then responding back to that. It's good energy. And I like to end my day with some form of exercise. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but that's the way I wind down. But I'd be remiss if I said that, this is a 4:30 and I go home at 3. It's not like that. It's a long day. I think these kind of jobs are taxing. You work a lot. I just took a vacation, but you work a lot on vacation. But it's part of the job, and I feel privileged and honored to have it. But it's not for the faint of heart. I will definitely say that.
Indeed. And you're very brave to try to exercise at the end of the day. I have to exercise at the beginning of the day.
Yeah.
I say so that I can do it and get it done before I've woken up and realized what I'm doing.
Yep.
So
I agree. On the weekends, that's my preference, but it makes a commute better if you're on that road at 5 a.m.
It sure does. It sure does. And I love that you spend your commute talking to your mom. I get up every morning. My mom is 3 hours ahead.
Yeah.
So every morning I get up at about 6 o'clock and talk to my mom, who is now up because it's 9 o'clock.
Yeah, my family knows that if I call you and you don't pick up, I go to the next person. So it's just, I move on down the line.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you've recently had some very different days in your role as interim CEO. And I'd like to ask you a little bit about that journey and how that appointment came about, and then what the experience was like of being interim CEO.
Sure. It was one of those situations where, we've had a lot of change at Starbucks over the last, I'd say 4 years. And so I've been a consistent thread in that, I think, which was the reason that when there was going to be this new appointment for Brian, for someone to cover just in that interim period, it made sense because I've been the consistent thread. And so I think when the board called and asked, I don't know if they exactly asked, but it was immediately yes. I did after I say yes, I said how long, and so I think that's what really led me to that, is just that I've been consistent through all of these changes and the journey that we've been on at Starbucks. And, honestly, what I love so much is Starbucks is such a welcoming place that more than anything else, I just felt like we were all a strong team working through this until Brian, our new CEO, joined. So I never felt like it was me. It was really all of us supporting the company until Brian came along. And I think I take a lot of comfort in that, because it goes back to that sense of, being part of a family, being a place where you belong. And so really what I was trying to do in that time period was get the financial plan finished, because we had a board meeting this week, actually, on Tuesday. And so, we were right in terms of finishing our financial plan for the year. And one thing that I did like is I was like, oh, now the decisions will be made. And so, but it was fun. We worked, collaboratively to get that done and be able to present it to the board. So that was really, most of what I did during the tenure.
And because you say yes to every opportunity, you
Yes.
would have said yes even if it was not
Yes.
being voluntold.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course I would.
Excellent. Any advice that you would have for somebody who might be about to get tapped for a similar kind of an activity in their organization?
Yeah, I really do believe, I hear a lot where people will ask me, do you ever, question, do you have the capability to do this? Do you have the skills to do this? People ask me if I ever question that. I never do. Because I feel like if you know your capabilities, one thing that I know about myself is I will never be the smartest person in the room, never. But I have two things that I can control: my attitude, not always great at it, but my attitude, and my effort. And I can always control my effort. I can always dig in. I can always learn. I got a good head on my shoulders. And so I think if you're being tapped for an opportunity, and maybe it's in a place where you think, geez, I don't have the background for that. I don't have the skills for that. Or someone's saying like, why would you get that? Don't even question it. Just know yourself and know your worth and go for it. You will figure it out. People around you will help, but just know that you yourself can learn it and you can dig in. You can always control your effort. And so I'd say, that's the opportunity to say yes, no matter what it is.
No matter what it is, yeah. So, and I think you mentioned on Monday there was one thing you were kind of hoping to get done while you were interim CEO that you didn't manage to get done.
Yeah, the Slurpees and all the drinking fountains. That was my promise to the team, and it didn't happen. I love cherry Slurpees. I think they are the most amazing. I love all of our Starbucks drinks, but a cherry Slurpee is about as good as it gets, in my opinion.
And we can tell then your value of fun, absolutely. All right, so I'd like to transition now and talk just a little bit about what you're seeing in the business climate.
Yeah.
And so when you think about, I don't know if it's regionally, nationally, globally, pick wherever you want to be, what are some of the key trends that you're watching that you think are going to be really important?
The consumer environment. For us, that's one of the biggest areas that we can focus on is what's happening in the consumer environment as it relates to inflation, as it relates to the pressure that people have in terms of their spending power, the presence of our brand in that, because people are still spending money and they will spend money even in difficult times, but you have to have a brand that is top of mind, a brand that resonates, a brand where people feel like you're doing what they value. And so that's where I spend a lot of time. I read a lot about what's going on in the news. I look at a lot of our metrics to determine how are we faring in this type of environment. It's dynamic, and I think it's going to get even more dynamic as we're, upon election year, and there's a lot of uncertainty that goes with that. And so consumers naturally think about their spending related to uncertainty. And so those are the areas that we keep top of mind, and we think about how can we disrupt in that type of environment? How can we break through, and how can we disrupt? And one of the things I love about Brian, who's our new CEO, he's day 3 on the job, I believe, but already he's got just great ideas around marketing and around how we talk more about our brand and our business in ways that are actionable. And I think there's a lot to be said about that, particularly in this kind of environment. I think the other thing that I would say is, obviously there's a lot happening from a technology standpoint. And we were just having a conversation yesterday. I made a comment that, we're doing a lot related to technology this year. I would hope in 3 to 4 years, we start to find some balance. And, everybody in the room looked at me and they're like, there's never going to be that balance. Like, there's always going to be more and more that we need to do from technology. I was thinking more about the dollars of things, if I'm honest, but, they're absolutely right. You just look at things like AI, and I think artificial intelligence, we leverage a lot of that already today at Starbucks, but there's so much change happening in the world that you have to constantly be on the front foot about how you're going to manage that change, how you're going to disrupt that change. I think about the last 5 years of my career. There's been more change in the last 5 years than the entire time that I've been, working. And I read a study that said 78% of the CEOs that were surveyed in this study said they think the next 3 years will be more challenging than the 50 years before. And I think that just speaks to the rapid rate of change. And technology is something that we can leverage to be able to help bridge the gaps with the change. And it can give, employees, or in our case, partners, the skills and the tool sets so that we can make our organizations more resilient, stronger. As an example, at Starbucks, we use AI for a lot of different aspects of our business. We call it deep brew technology, so you get the deep brew in that. But one example we use it for is site selection of our stores. And in leveraging that, about 90% of our stores, almost 90% of our new stores across the company are incremental. And it's because of the power of that technology to select the right sites. And that gives partners more time to do the analytics, more times to think about the strategy. So less about the tactical and more about the strategy and the insights and the analysis, and even something Kurt talked about, which is the soft skills, which are really what people want to do, what employees want to do, what partners want to do. So I look at that as a big opportunity to just strengthen your organization and create a resiliency with change is going to be constant, and that's one way to be able to meet the change.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit more about the consumer environment. And so you talked about inflation and the pressure on spending power. What else are you seeing in terms of the evolution of the customer base and what they want from a company like Starbucks?
Definitely mission and values. Like we see time and time again that our customers I mean, you think about what a brand, why do you choose a certain brand? You choose it because you have an emotional connection to that brand, whether you realize it or not. You feel like that brand resonates quality, and I'm talking about any brand, not just about Starbucks, but it resonates maybe quality. It resonates, an affiliation that you're aligned with. They do things that you support. They fit your own values. And so when we think about our customer base, we have to make sure that our mission and our values are present and that they're authentic. It's one thing to talk about them, but if you aren't displaying them authentically, then your customers aren't going to support you. And, it's no surprise. I mean, everybody knows we've had a lot of challenges over the past a year. We've had a lot of challenges in the news space. I would say our headlines are not typically positive. They're more negative than they are positive. And right, wrong, or indifferent, our job is to ensure that we as a company hold true to our mission and our values so that we can continue to be authentic in how we demonstrate the right experience to our customers. And we depend a lot on our store partners to make sure that they're creating that great experience each and every day, that individual attention that I spoke about. And we've got a lot of opportunity. We become very busy, in some cases very fast. And while that's good, because customers say they want convenience and they want consistency and they want the right value, that's what is considered worth it. We have customers that when they come to us, they say it's worth it for what I pay, worth it for what I get. But you're always having to continue to invest in that to make sure that you are the very best in that space. And that's a big opportunity for us. And, I think Brian coming in is a signal that we've got to do things differently. And I'm excited about what I see ahead. What I love about Starbucks is there's no end of opportunity. But as a brand and as a business, with change being so constant, you have to constantly be on your front foot, and really figuring out how do you meet customers in these ways that I just spoke about, through consistency, through convenience, through that individual experience, and with a value that makes it worth paying for. And we know that's what our customers are looking for, and so we have to constantly be investing, whether it's investing in technology, investing in the partners in our stores, the partners in our business, so we have the very best talent, investments that we make in products, investments we're going to make in marketing. All of that is incredibly important, but it's a balance because you got to be doing that while you're still trying to find that profit. And then when we do that well, then we can continue to make a good impact in the world in terms of what we all care about, which is really the mission. And doing good in the world that we're in, and that's important to all of us that work at Starbucks.
Yeah. And I want to come back to the mission, because when you quoted your mission, you kind of said, and sometimes I wonder what that means, and I do the same with the mission of the Carson College of Business. And so I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what are some of the important ways that you help your frontline store employees understand and embody that mission.
For me, it's what I look at it is, the mission statement is simple enough, but it's a statement. And to me, the way you really experience a brand or a business is through an authentic experience. And when I talked about investments in our partners, that means hiring the right partners, making sure that they have, the right wage, that they have the right hours, that they understand what service looks like, and that we reward for good service, because there's nothing better than, I noticed this morning, I got my drink on the way in, and then I decided to have another one. So if you're doing the math, that's about 8 shots. Yes,
I explains a lot.
Yeah, I was at 8 shots before I took the stage, and there'll be more today, by the way. But I went to the store down here at the Sheridan, and it was a long line, and people were moving through, and I got up to the counter, and they said they don't take cash, and I was like, well, wow, okay. So I pull out my credit card, and then the gentleman at the counter made a comment about my dress. And we just had this little quick interaction, and real simple, but it was just, really nice. And then I noticed on my drink when I went to pick it up, it said enjoy, and it had a exclamation point and a heart. And I thought, wow, someone took the time to do that, and it was delightful. And I just look at that as, that to me is, when I think about what's great about Starbucks, that was the best of Starbucks right there. Mm-hmm. And it's simple, but it's complicated.
And you were a secret shopper.
And I was a secret shopper, right? That's right.
Did you tell them afterwards?
No, I never
Didn't
do.
Introduce yourself. Awesome.
No, I never do. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned with your new CEO coming on, you said there's a signal of some things you're going to be doing differently. Can you tell us a little bit about what you see coming differently?
Yeah, I mean,
It's early days, yeah.
Yeah, what I would say is it's definitely early days, but when you just look at the past couple of quarters for Starbucks, I mean, it's no secret we have an opportunity to drive more traffic in our stores, and simply put, that means bring more customers in. And we are a business that is all about the routine. And when we're at our best, we are someone's customer's first thought in the morning. That trip on the way into work, that trip as you're bringing the kids to school. The morning is really where we typically have won, and where we've created a strong customer base and an affinity. And I think it's really important for us to think about, how do we do that and continue to do that with all of these stores, with the scale that we have, and in the right way? And we've had challenges in the past quite a few quarters, really since Q2 of this year. So, going on the past 2 quarters. And so with Brian coming in, it's how do we continue to be top of mind from a brand perspective? How do we be that consumer brand that, really resonates with a broad base of customers? What I love about Starbucks, it's an individual experience. So I'm different than Kara is, but my experience should be unique to me. Kara's experience should be unique to her. And that's what I love about Starbucks. That's the simple part, but it's also complicated. And how do you do that at scale? And when we do that right, that's what brings customers, into our stores. When we give them what they want in the right way, with that little bit of individual experience. And I think, what Brian's going to be focused on, what he shared even this week in an open letter, is getting back to Starbucks. And that's what Starbucks means to me. And I know I have a lot of Starbucks partners here, and I'm sure there's a similar feeling, and that's what Starbucks means to all of us. Mm-hmm. And I say it's simple because it's a simple service. It's a simple experience. But at the same time, it's really complicated to do that across many, many stores, across a lot of different partners. But that's the magic that I think Starbucks can offer in this world.
Excellent. All right, thank you. And I guess talk about one more trend. I mean, we look at a world right now of tremendous global uncertainty. What are the kinds of things that you pay attention to and that Starbucks pays attention to help navigate that uncertainty?
I mean, we're a global company, so naturally there's a lot happening globally that we have to be aware of and cognizant of. But what we try to focus on is that experience that's individual to each and every community in which we operate. And if you keep it at that level, there's always going to be things happening in the world, and they're going to impact your businesses in different ways. But when you think about what is your business, for us at Starbucks, our business is that experience that we create for a customer. It doesn't matter where that customer is. They could be in Japan, they could be in China, they could be in the UK, they could be in the US. And as we focus on that individual experience in each and every store, and you bring it down to that level, that's what helps us continue forward with our business, despite the fact that we are going to be living in a very dynamic world for, I think, the rest of the years to come. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so you mentioned earlier kind of trends in technology, and certainly within technology, the trends around AI, which is getting a lot of attention, both good and bad. I think we are probably falling into the trough of disillusionment in Gartner's hype cycle with AI. What's your take on AI and how it'll affect your business? And you talked a lot about the deep brew tech that you're using in developing stores. What else are you seeing?
Well, I mean, the way I look at it is, as I said before, AI is a way to be able to strengthen your organization and to create some resiliency. In finance, we use it in areas like sales forecasting. We use it in auditing. I already talked about site selection of our stores. So there's a lot of different avenues where it can create a strength in your business. But I think where there's and that allows a lot of the tactical work to be done through a systematic way. It gives people, partners in our case, employees, the technology and the tools to be able to make processes, to be able to make many of the work that they do systematic. It gives them the tools to systemize while they're able to spend time maybe thinking more about the strategy or the insights and the analysis. And so I think that creates value in what people do. You have to have a workforce that is going to be problem solvers and curious and willing to take on change. And if you have that type of mindset, then you can use technology, like I said, in a good way. I think where technology and AI, for example, becomes problematic, if I'm honest, when I look at generative AI and I ask it to write something for me, I mean, as someone who spent their undergrad writing, I get a little offended by how good it is. And it concerns me because part of the joy of writing is it's creative and it's problem solving. And while that's a good thing to be able to leverage technology to do that, if we rely on it too much, we lose skill sets. And that's problematic. And so I think we have to be really careful to leverage technology, AI, generative AI, in ways that complement what we do as employees, or in our case, partners, and what we do in businesses versus having it augment. It shouldn't be about getting rid of people. In place of this, it should be about leveraging the technology to enhance what people can do.
And what does that mean? What are you looking for? For me, as dean of a business school, it's like, okay, what does this mean for how we prepare our students for the workforce? So certainly making sure that they are curious, making sure they have problem-solving skills. What else would you be looking for to help in terms of that capability of using AI in new employees?
I think it's trying it. Now, generative AI, I think there's a lot of controversy of how you leverage it in the workplace right now, but you can still personally play around with it. I've done it for speeches. I've done it for, I was writing something for a friend's event that I was going to. So I think you have to be willing to dabble. I think that comes to the curiosity. It's always going to come down to you want to have employees, or in our case, partners, who are curious and who want to try things out, who want to try to problem solve. But you have to be able to look at it and say, what's working, what's not. You have to question it. You can't use it verbatim. But I think it's really that willingness to try. It goes back to the risk and the reward. Taking the risk to try some of these things. It may not work. You might fail in something, but you're going to learn. And I think that's really incredibly important.
Yeah, I used to, when I first started playing with generative AI tools, I looked at it and the first analogy that I made, having grown up in the tech industry, was to offshoring and IT offshoring, and what we learned about that, and how you can, yes, there are things that you can use there, but you can't just toss everything over to your offshore provider. I think the even better analogy that I've heard lately is it's a really good intern. And if you think about it as an intern, you have to coach and lead the intern. You can't just rely on the intern to produce the result, or you get stuff that's really boring.
It's like, we do a lot of reports where there's, every month a standard commentary. And it actually, even though we haven't tried it in the workplace as much, but you can tell just in leveraging it, it would be able to do that commentary right well, but it's going to take someone to not take that verbatim, to question it and to say, well, hang on a minute, does this make sense? But it should allow you the time now to be able to do that, because you're not spending the time trying to write it. You're spending the time trying to look at it and say, well, hang on, does this make sense? And so I think that's really important. From an offshoring standpoint, we've been leveraging, aspects of offshoring, the real transactional nature, for many years. But I look at what AI is providing now is even more advanced, right? And that's the place where you got to really balance the going completely all in and replacing versus complementing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I know your answer to this, but I will ask you directly. Would you say you are excited or apprehensive? about AI?
I'd say I'm both. I'm generally excited. I told you my writing perspective, but I'm generally excited about it. I look at things like sustainability. Sustainability matters a lot for the world. It matters a lot to Starbucks. And you think about what we'll be able to do from an energy perspective, what we'll be able to do from a transportation perspective. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can optimize and use it for good. I always think of that superhero quote with, great power comes great responsibility. And I think that's exactly the case here.
Yeah, I agree 100%. All right, so you've talked a lot about the importance of mission and values in Starbucks. I want to talk to you a little bit about your personal values. And so what are the personal values that you try to live and try to incorporate into your work?
Yeah, sure. There's a slide because we got some quiz coming up here. If you're starting to find that you're getting that sleepy mode, we got a quiz coming, so stay awake. But for me, I have a quote that I like to use, which is your values drive value. And what I mean by that is I think when you really have a strong set of values, it helps you understand who you are. And it can guide your behavior. And I think that's important because it can be a code for leadership. And I think that one of the most important things you can have as a leader is to be authentic. And that comes with really understanding who you are. And values help you understand who you are and what matters to you. And that, I think, makes you a better leader and more authentic. When I think about my values and what I care about, I really resonate with the values that Starbucks has, particularly the fun part. And this idea of belonging. I love the fact that Starbucks is the kind of place where I can go up on stage and do all kinds of crazy things and, have stories and people enjoy it. And that's fun to me because it allows me to be creative and allows me to be enthusiastic. And that's just part of who I am. But when I think about my own personal values, one is really that authenticity. Being authentic matters to me. It started with how I grew up. I grew up in like I said, a tight-knit family. You are who you are. I grew up in a small town. People know who you are, even if they don't know you. Trust me, they know you. And so it's important to me that I'm able to be my true self. And the person you see at work is no different than the person you see at home. So that's something that matters to me value-wise. And I feel like it creates a better environment from a team perspective where people can, bring their own selves as well. And I think teams are better when you have diversity of thought and opinion and skill sets and personalities. Another value that resonates with me is resilience, resiliency. I talked about that as that's probably why I was the interim is just, I've been the thread and the standing through the last 4 years of change. And resiliency to me is, as I shared, it's really more about the idea that while I may not have, some people are naturally gifted, they're the smartest person in the room. That's not what I bring to the table, but what I bring to the table is I am relentless. I just do not give up. Whether it's a question that I'm curious about, I will dig in. Whether it's a situation that's difficult, I generally am very relentless and it comes back to my belief that you really can control two things, and that is your effort and your attitude. And so that's an important part of who I am and what I value. And then I think the third thing for me is really generosity. And it is not about money. It's about giving of your time. It's about being a part of a team. I think teams are stronger when you know each other, when you feel comfortable in, sometimes people say things to me and I'm like, wow, did they just say that? But then I feel great that they said that because that's important. That creates a better, stronger team. So those are some of the things that I value as a person and what I bring to the workplace. So I'd be curious what you value.
That's a good question. It's interesting. I think there's a lot of similarity. I think the first thing I would talk about is integrity. I think in higher ed, that's been one that I've seen, for decades. Students come to your office at the end of the semester and it's like, can you increase my grade? And it's like, yeah. I have to understand there that my role is to provide a grade that reflects what was accomplished.
Yeah.
And so the integrity of the process, the integrity of our institution, research. We've seen a ton with research over the past decade of people calling into question results and whether research, and our industry, the entire industry of higher ed, depends on integrity. Without integrity, we collapse like a house of cards. And so I think integrity is one, and that comes from my dad and kind of how I grew up. As a leader, I think for me, a critical value is transparency. Again, working in a professional organization with very competent professionals, nobody accepts do it because I said so. And so that transparency to be able to say, this is why we're doing this, and this is what we're doing, and maybe sometimes we're doing that, and yes, it's an arbitrary decision. And sometimes we make arbitrary decisions and we're just going to live with it, but owning when it's arbitrary and when there's a good reason.
Yeah.
And then the last one, I think, is, I mean, certainly I resonate a lot with the notion of fun and generosity, but I think for me, I'd probably call it kindness. And just, living in the world and interacting with people and reflecting those relationships with people, I think is critical, and a really important balance to that notion of integrity, which often means saying no. So being able to do that with a degree of kindness if that's necessary.
Yeah, those are good. Okay, so we're going to turn it on all of you for a nice prize. Who's willing to share a value or two that they have? Oh, in the back room. Wow. Ethics, integrity, family, faith, and country? Did I get the last one right?
Yep.
Yeah, country. Yep. Excellent. I love it. Well, look, see, you took the risk, you get a good reward. Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
And I loved it. You could just get those
Yeah.
right off the top of your head. I think that's how you live authentically, when you're so tight to your values and you know your values.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So we start to wrap up. How do you think our audience can bring their values back to their organizations?
I think what's important is really figuring out what matters to you, what your values are. If you can throw them off at the top of the hat just like that, it's worth a prize, because really it's risky, I think, sometimes to be who you are, to really bring your full self to places. Sometimes it's risky because sometimes people reject it. I can't tell you how many in the industry I'm in. I'm in a finance is pretty serious and it hasn't changed much, and it's a little bit stodgy in some regards. And I literally walk into rooms where it is all suits, black, maybe a navy, and then woo, here comes me. And I just think it can be risky, right? And it can be uncomfortable sometimes, but the more you really recognize who you are and what matters to you, I think you make yourself stronger to any organization. I think the very best organizations are full of one-of-a-kind individuals. And organizations are stronger when they have diversity of thought, when they have diversity of opinion, when they have different backgrounds and different skill sets. Sameness doesn't equal success and greatness. It's really an individuality. And I think that's the best thing that you can offer and that you can take away from what I have to share today. And there's a risk in that, but like I said, there is a reward, because I think then in doing that you find belonging and you find a place where you fit and it makes you happier. And I think you want to be happy, hopefully, in what you do each and every day, because days are long. And so finding that way to be happy is really, really important. And when I think about Cougs, what I love about Cougs is they're definitely one of a kind. I really believe that. I know, because I live with that one who's got the license plate, and just it all. And it really brings out that one of a kind in individuals. And so for the last prize, which this is a real special one. So this is just Vivian did a nice job of blowing this up, but if you've noticed, there's a lot of UW merchandise at Starbucks. Don't get me going, right? There's a whole display down there. There's very little Coug material, but some years ago, many, many years ago, they had a Washington State Starbucks card. And our head of marketing, he gave me one. And this was his. And so we loaded it with $100. It's in a nice box. Vivian's got it for you. And it's super rare. I looked and saw how much could you sell it on eBay with nothing on it. And you could get a couple $100 for it. If you give it more time, it goes up. So I noticed, because I had the first Starbucks card ever. I was part of the launch team, and you can sell it on eBay for like $4,700 with nothing on it. So
Wow.
there's a reason to take a risk on this one. So with that, my question to you is, I said Cougs are one of a kind. What do you think are the couple of values that makes Washington State a Coug one of a kind? I saw your hand go up. Community.
That's what I tell my kids. I have a freshman there now. I have a daughter who's going to be there next year. I take them to campus. They see the community. It's Cougs are for Cougs. That's what they fall in love with.
I love it. Community. All right. Vivian's got the box for you. There you go. Thank you. Thanks for having fun with my trivia. I know sometimes people are like, oh, no, but hopefully it's fun. Plus, you get some good stuff out of it. And I think free is always good, so can't beat that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've got some time for Q&A to hear questions from you. I will ask you as we move into Q&A, please wait for the microphone to come to you so that we can hear the question throughout the room. Angie's got the microphone in the center. So who would like to kick us off? Yeah. Angie. And Angie, I will also let you look for
All
hands.
right,
because I got
go
a little
Cougs,
bit
thank you. How do you see Starbucks being involved with the return of the Seattle Supersonics?
Here's where I'm going to pivot. Here's where I'm going to pivot. We support the Storm. So you got to go to a Storm game. Starbucks is one of the sponsoring partners of the Storm. I went to a game the other day. It was electrifying. So I'd say, move on. This is 2024. Let's go Storm.
How can we help bring WSU merchandise back?
You know, I'm with you. I have not been able to crack this code. Remember how I said I'm relentless? I'm serious. Like, I make comments constantly. I tell them that if this was merchandise that was WSU, it would be sold. You wouldn't see it on the stands. So we're going to keep pushing. There's two areas I'm focused on, and it's the merchandise because I know it will do well. I mean, look at Bartell's. You look at the Coug merch there. It goes. But the other area I think we have an opportunity for is bringing more of our Washington State University students into our internship programs at Starbucks. Sean Smith, who is, I work with him in finance, and he did a good job many years bringing more diversity into our intern pool, but I've noticed that of late it's dominating in certain areas, and so we've got an opportunity to do that. So encourage students to apply, and I think that's an important part, but the merch, we'll keep at it. We'll keep at it.
Thank you.
No, I cannot believe it. That's my good friend Tana back there.
Oh my gosh, do you want? Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Do you want the mic, Tana? Hey, I actually have kind of a serious question for you. So, I love Starbucks, and we go there all the time, and I've always been very disappointed in your food options. And I'm really into the health. I was an early investor in Evergreens. I try to keep Evolution Fresh alive myself by going there as much as possible. I think with Brian coming in and like Chipotle's got some,
Really
healthier food choices. Like
Yeah.
I know the economics behind healthy food is tough,
Yep.
very hard. How much do you personally, what can you do to really improve the food choices that are healthy for us that go to Starbucks a lot?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because personally I'm someone for dietary restrictions. There's not a lot of options for me there. And so one of the things we try to focus on is, first and foremost, we are a beverage company. But Brian even said during our open forum this week, which I loved, is the quality of our beverages should translate to the quality of our food. So it may mean that maybe we don't have as many offerings over time, but maybe we have and this is just, don't take this for verbatim yet, but a smaller set of offerings, but that are risen to the level of quality that equals our beverage. And that's what he talked about at an open forum this week with our partners. And I agree, we will always be a beverage first company for a lot of different reasons, but be able to have food that complements with that same level of quality is where the opportunity is. And I think with Brian's background, particularly in how quality the food is at Chipotle, I think that's going to be a really good complement. So I have to tell you, that is a comment. We hear it a lot. I would say our food and beverage team has done a lot of work to improve quality over time. Egg Bites is a perfect example of, the roasted red pepper egg white bites. That's a great product. It's unique to Starbucks. It's high protein. It's great quality. We need more offerings like that while having choice. I think what's important about Starbucks is choice. So you maybe decide today's the day I'm going to indulge, and it's double smoked bacon all the way. But you should have, optionality, and I think that's where we'll continue to focus. I want to applaud the team for doing good work in this space over the years to improve it, but there's more to do, and we recognize that. So I think you'll see more coming.
Hey, Rachel. For the rest of you, I'm Tayana Ross. I'm currently representing WSU at Microsoft.
I won't call you Rainbow Bright, but I
was
just
going
said
to say
it.
Rainbow Bright. Definitely approved your message today. So all of us have a message in this room to tell wherever we're working, and I know that you've always been big on storytelling. So what advice do you have for those students in the room and all the rest of us that need help storytelling ourselves and making sure our message resonates with those that we're selling to?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I think about storytelling, what matters most to me is thinking about what are the 3 takeaways you want someone to understand. Like if you left today, what I hope you heard is risk is worth the reward. I tried to repeat that a couple of times today. I tried to use, props and gifts to do that. But in storytelling, you have to think about what is it simply. You can't have 5 things. You got to have max 3 of what you want someone to hear and take away. And then focus your story around that. And I think reading the paper, I always find things in the journal even that I circle and I'm like, now that's, Mr. Beast, taken over, not listening to Elon Musk. Like there's a story to be told in that. But finding something that's relevant, in the news, top of mind, that you can put your 3 ideas against. I did something last year around Barbie, Beyonce, and Taylor Swift, the power of, what Barbie, Taylor, and Beyonce did to just overall economics and the GDP, and but put a story into that. So I think relevant topics, what's happening around, and then sandwiching your 3 takeaways or your 1 or 2 takeaways in that is a great way to think about how you can hammer a message. Yeah, it's good to see you.
So you referred to a wee bit of organizational change at Starbucks over the last few years.
Just a little.
You also talk about the organization as one with significant values and structure and history. Washington State University also might be going through a little bit of organizational change. Also, a university which has a significant concept of what its organizational values are. What recommendations do you have for both setting the stage so that you can continue on the success, but also infusing new ideas and structure so you can really accelerate something into a new space that it hasn't been before?
It's always a challenge, because the one thing that I tell our partners all the time as we continue to go through these changes is no one person runs a company. No one person runs a college. When you have like-minded individuals that hopefully you're hiring people that are there because they're part of the community, because they believe wholeheartedly in the mission of WSU, or they believe wholeheartedly in the mission of Starbucks. You want that like-minded as part of the organization, because that is what's going to keep a culture alive. No one person can do that. It needs to be the power of the overall team and the overall organization. So making sure that, everyone around embraces a new individual, but makes sure that culture stays as top of mind. And really good leaders, I read a quote that said, leadership is a combination of strategy and character. And if you have to give up one, give up the strategy. And I think that's really important to think about as you bring new individuals, leaders into an organization, that the organization needs to stand tall and help support. Don't say yes. I have a quote that I say, don't be led, lead. And that's really important when you have change. You have to lead, and it's hard because sometimes the new leader will say, well, I want it this way, and I want it done that way. And you have to balance it, but sometimes in your discipline what's best. And so you have to be forceful and ensure that during times of change, the community leads rather than being led. And I think that helps. You can see I know a little something about that.
Hey, Rachel, Jim Han. I'm a former 10-year partner at Starbucks, so go Starbucks.
Hey, all right.
So when I was with the company, I'm getting back to corporate values. When I was with the company, one of the really amazing things we did was we were able to directly link our investments in social, community, and sustainability right back to the P&L.
Yeah, I remember you led part of the whole green sustainability team. Yeah.
But I think, in the current wave of companies backing off from their social commitments and backing off from their societal commitments and, the anti-ESG wave, I think one of the reasons for that is that they haven't done a good job at creating those linkages that Starbucks has been able to do. What's your advice to those companies who may be, operating and teetering on the edge and deciding whether or not they need to back off from some of these, social commitments or social values or environmental values?
Well, the hard part is it takes profitability to do what's right. I mean, unfortunately, that's the reality of it. And so, companies have to first and foremost make sure that, they're managing the business in the way that matters, but then preserving some of where the growth comes from to be able to support, not because it's legislated. Like, we're going to get to a point where administratively, we're going to just be doing this from a legislative standpoint. I mean, you already see it in Europe. Some of it's starting to happen here. At some point, the SEC this is going to become, part of the requirement. And I think what's important is to do it before that legislation comes in, because then you're not answering one-offs, but you're actually focusing on the areas that are actually going to grow and support your business. And that's hard to do, but it's really important to figure out, we as companies are going to have to do it just because there will not be water at some point in all places. That gives me a lot of concern. When it rains, even though I don't love the rain, I always think, oh yeah, it's raining. But water is going to be, natural capitalism, I think for many years we've taken it for granted. It's not free. And so we are going to slowly run out of resources over time. And so as companies, we have to do it not just because it's good, but because it's going to mean sustaining, livelihoods and profitability. And so that's a lot of talk. But I think from an action standpoint, companies have to prioritize a few areas that matter to them so that when the legislation does come, they have metrics that will drive their business while, adhering to the administrative aspect versus waiting to be told what that metric should be. If you've got a metric, then you're already ahead and you're leading in that space, and you're doing it in a way that's going to benefit your business and benefit the society versus just being administrative. And I think that's the hard part, is when ESG becomes administrative, it's no good for anyone.
Thank you so much for being here. You've been fantastic to listen to. I've really, really appreciated this. A lot of us sit on the advisory boards for the Carson School and the different sub-colleges. As we're preparing students and technology and AI is changing so fast, is there an area that you're looking for students to be ready from a tech standpoint, given what they know now is going to be different in 18 months? Should we be doing something to encourage the school that prepares them to succeed with you around technology?
I really go back to, this sounds a little bit maybe redundant or rote, but I truly believe it's technology is going to change so much that what you learn today is going to be different. Exactly what you're saying. What you learn today is going to be different maybe a year from now. But what doesn't change is curiosity and problem solving and being able to dig in and sort through something, the more we can teach that in students, in employees, in our case, in partners, the better, because part of it is you have to be changing with the change. And that requires a mindset. And that mindset, I think, is going to do more than any one technology will do. It's really the mindset to be, willing to go in and learn something new. I mean, it's a lot easier. I see it all the time when we hear complaints about we don't have the systems and tools, and so we put it in a new system and no one wants to use it because what they did was more familiar and they can do it faster. But when you have people that they're curious and they're problem solvers and they're willing to lean into change, that's when we're going to have more success societally. So I think that's the best thing that you can teach, because you can't teach one technology. You have to teach the skill set behind it and then the mindset that goes with that.
Okay, we'll take that time for one more question.
Thank you, Rachel. I really was impressed that you began your career as an English as a second language teacher at a community college. How has that experience influenced your career over your lifetime?
I think the best thing that it did for me was it made me realize that, I taught a class of students that had all different backgrounds and levels of proficiency. Some couldn't even read and write in their own language. And so what it taught me was that you have to boil down information to a common denominator. And I think that's been really helpful for me, because when I think about the discipline I'm in, I mean, you could overwhelm people with numbers and spreadsheets, and most people, you start to see the glaze in the eyes. But if you want that information to have an impact, then you have to be able to translate it so that someone can make better decisions with it. And so I think my time teaching, I taught for about 4 years, and my time teaching really helped me disseminate information, and that was really powerful. It also made me more appreciative of the fact that you're dealing with so many different backgrounds in anybody that you speak to. While we might all have been graduates of WSU in undergrad and graduate, across the board, we all have different backgrounds. We came from different families. We have different learning styles. We have different, ways that we interpret. And so trying to find a way to speak commonly to a broad and diverse group of people, I think, is very powerful. And I'm grateful for that experience. I wish it was deliberate, but I just happened upon it. But I'm grateful for that experience. And when I retire someday, I'm going back into that world some way in teaching. My husband was a teacher for 33 years, and he recently retired. And I tell him I'm going to go into teaching, and he just shakes his head. But, I think there's so much opportunity there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Rachel, for taking a risk
to
come and join us this morning.
Thank you.
And
wow.
Reward for your risk.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this. To my fellow storm participants, I went to a storm game recently, and I brought a purse. And you have to have a clear bag like this. So just so you know, this will get a lot of use. So,
and that is a
thank
Carson
you.
College of Business.
It's the
branded
best.
bag, so
yes.
it is awesome.
So thank you.
So this has been a fascinating conversation. I think there is so much of what you have talked about this morning that I think we can take back to the Carson College, teaching our students about attitude and effort,
yes.
About living your values. And I think one of the interesting things that I'm going to take back is you talked about the importance at Starbucks of creating individualized experiences at scale. Mm-hmm. And when I think about what sits in front of us in higher education over the next decades, that's our challenge as well.
Yes.
Is how do we create individualized learning experiences at scale?
Yeah.
And so I really want to thank you for that. This has been an inspiring conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Again, thank you to our sponsors. Without you, events like this would not be possible. And go Cougs.
Yeah, thank you.